Welcome to Foodytime. I'm Jay Fettigan, and if you've ever wondered what it's like to be in wine country in the most exciting and active time of the year, which is harvest, you've come to the right place. In this episode, I talk with Brenner of Benevolent Neglect Wines, and he's in Napa Valley, and they're about a week or two into harvest this year. Ben took some time out from his schedule, and we talked all about harvest and what it's like to live in wine country, and then he gives some great recommendations for wine and for food for the fall. Enjoy. Ben, thanks for joining us on Foodytime. I wanted to talk with you about harvest, kind of what harvest means to you, and sort of what it's like to be right in the center of it while it's happening.
It is absolutely the most fun time of year. We're really lucky to live in Napa because, whether you make wine or not, the palpable buzz of harvest is everywhere. The smell, the energy is really, really high during the season. And that's something that I noticed right away when I moved to Napa. As soon as the fall hits, it's all hands on deck. Traffic is worse. The people are working really hard and getting up really early. You drive, down the Silverado Trail at 10 o'clock at night, and there's daylight everywhere with spruce picking, and it's the energy is amazing. And we actually started our harvest this week, so we're off to the races.
Yeah, could you run through a little bit for people that don't really know about harvest and what it is? What's the time frame? When does it start, and how tight are things in terms of timing to make sure that you get it right?
Yeah, getting it right is the whole thing for us, especially. For everybody, but we really prefer and choose not to manipulate our wines too much once they're made. That's part of kind of our main ethos as winemakers, and we really want to show off the vineyards we work with. So getting the pick right is really important because that allows us to really keep our hands out of our cookie jar, as it were. But the yearly cycle is fascinating, and getting to live inside of it all the time is cool. And I don't come from a viticulture background or a winemaking background either, science really at all. So the various jobs I've had over the years, and getting to be on the ground in the vineyards and see the vines cycle through the year over and over again, and seeing the way that people work through the year, and the crews that get to take care of vines when they're bare in the winter time, and when they're full bloom and when they're green, when everything else is brown. It's an incredible cycle. So you start seeing shoots, you start seeing bud break, you start seeing green growing, and then from there you get the little grapevines start to form, and you start to see little flowers form, which is really the most important part of the whole cycle, because it's the most variable time of year weather-wise, and the most delicate time for the vine. So that really can make or break seasons before they even start. And so once that happens, which we're through, you start seeing more green. You start seeing grapes growing, and they're hard, small, green, unripe grapes. Which is the same for any other fruit. If you have fruit trees, you see that happen. And then the process of veraison begins, which is the journey of going from hard and green and unripe to fully ripe and juicy and plumper. Although wine grapes, if you haven't seen them on the vine, don't really look like table grapes you get at the store. They're much smaller. They're much thicker skinned. They have seeds. They're very, very sweet. The end result, obviously, is a range of time where you're in the zone, right? So there's the very, very lower edge of ripeness, where you would say ripe at its basis level, and then all the way through, raisins and fully dehydrated, desiccated, which would also conceivably be considered ripe as well. So somewhere in that zone, you have to decide what you're doing. So if you want to make lower alcohol, higher acid, leaner, brighter, fresher wines, you're going to pick towards the front end of that zone. And if you want to make bigger, richer, fuller, higher alcohol wines, you're going to pick towards the end of that zone. And if you want to make, fully sweet, sticky dessert wines, you're going to pick at the very end of that zone. And so that's really where, as winery owners, as winemaker, which I'm not, but Matt, my business partner, and I and Jeff, we all put our heads together and we make those decisions based on what we wish and hope for the end result to be. And so that's kind of something you decide ahead of time. And then you go, you sample, you taste, you test the sugars, you test the acidity, you look at the vines and see what they look like, and you make your decision. And then there's can we get it through? Can we, work it into the schedule? Can we get on the board at the winery? Can all the things that are also factors. So there's a lot to it. And that's why this is the part of year where winemakers, really earn their money, because it's a lot of ins and outs, a lot of, making sure you're on top of every little detail. And, you miss by a day, 5 days, 2 weeks, completely different end result. And that's just how it goes. So there's always examples you hear of, something weird happened, you couldn't get it through, and then it rained 4 inches over the weekend, or it was 110 degrees for 5 days. And, afterwards, you never know what'll happen. So, best laid plans, of mice and men, as it were. But
And grapes are one of those rare fruits that once they're picked, they stop ripening. Am I right with that? That is unlike you leave an apple on the counter for a couple of days, but grapes you have to get the day right when they're ripe.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure that they stop ripening, but traditionally, like broader sense, that does seem to be the case. Yeah, so you can't brown paper bag 5 tons of Cabernet and hope it ripens out over the weekend. So there's that factor as well. Well, the other really interesting thing that happens in what kind of once you make the decision to pick, when to pick is also a factor, because because they're so sweet and there's tons of yeast everywhere. If it's in the middle of the day and it's 95 degrees out and you start filling bins and you're picking for a couple hours, by the time you're done, that first bin is going to be pretty much rolling fermentation by the time you get into the cellar, and it's completely uncontrolled, completely unchecked.
So the grapes actually start to ferment while they're after they're picked, before you take them to the winery. If it's a hot, steamy day, and with, as you said, with the natural yeast that's around and then just sitting in the tubs, they can actually start to make wine even before you take them into the winery.
Yeah, I mean, they have all these ancient ruins of wineries that existed back in antiquity, that they didn't have climate control. They didn't have glycol. They didn't have stainless steel. They got a pile of grapes and it turned itself into wine, and pressed it out with some oxen or whatever, and there you go. So the process is the same. There's no difference. It's fermentation is fermentation. No matter how much you try to control it, it'll do its thing. And we're very lucky because we get to work with growers who are incredible and on top of their game and really kind of set us up for success.
And it seems that Napa connects with a lot of different types of winemakers.
Well, and there's a lot of camps in the winemaking world. There's the kind of, for lack of a better thing to call it, like the UC Davis, the collegiate, these are the numbers, that's what we're doing.
Scientific,
these are what we're
right.
Yeah, hard science, lots of lab work, lots of paying attention to not just pH, but all these other factors that are great things to know about. And then there's the biodynamic organic set that are burying ram's horns with manure in them, and there's root days and fruit days and all these other things that are the moon affects the way we taste and the way we smell, and we don't want to pick on a moon day or on a root day, because then the wine's going to taste not fruity for its life and stuff like that. So that's a little outside of our purview as well. So we find ourselves somewhere kind of in the middle. We're very lucky to have not just the winery team, but also a great community around us, many of whom have the hard science degrees that help with that. So we have support on the science end, and we have support on the farming, the less what you would say less scientific end.
I imagine it has to be a mix of both, because you can pick a sampling and bring them to the lab and have them all tested, But sometimes I'm sure you get out there and it's like, oh no, we're picking now. It's like I can see it there. I know that it's ready.
If you don't put your eyes, like this happened to us just this week. We have our Pinot Grigio picked, scheduled, it's ready to go. It's in Lodi, it's hot, so pretty sure it's going to be good. We sampled, got a certain ripeness number, and then the grower watered the vineyard because it was really, really hot, and the number came down and then came back up, and so is the pick. We moved it around a little bit, but the numbers, if we didn't look, the numbers would have told us something very different than what was on the ground. So yeah, you have to go, you have to see, you have to touch and taste. And I think last time we spoke about our experience with working with Steve Mathiasen, who's a very a well-known viticulturist and organic farmer and winemaker, and he picks, honestly, like he'll look at the numbers, but he looks at the vines. The vines tell him when it's time, and he uses a completely different set of metrics than essentially every other winemaker. So it's fascinating to see.
One of the other things I suspect that it happens too around harvest time is, are there a group of people that just come to pick to be labor during this time of year? I mean, what is that like?
Yeah, it's a difficult subject because migrant labor forces are a reality in basically all farming communities, and these guys are and men and women and whoever come into the community are awesome people. They work super, super hard. They make the whole thing go around. I mean, there's no, I have like very brief experience, like a month worth of working with a vineyard crew. And that tiny bit of time even was just like, it's an incredibly difficult physical game to play. Especially, I thought, I was like at the time in my very late 30s, and I was, borderline crippled from a month of doing it. And these guys are just running circles around me. And men and women both, they're just incredible. And so, I think without the workforce of any farming situation, it's basically impossible to do. So come to Napa, come to Sonoma, go stand on the side of the road at 4:45 a.m. and just watch for a minute. Just be like, crazy. They're so fast, so technical, so knowledgeable. It's anybody that thinks it's unskilled labor has not seen it for a second. So.
Right. Anything about harvest that comes to mind that we haven't talked about? Since you're the person who's right there. Any thoughts about harvest that we haven't touched on yet?
I think it's really a great experience to go to wine country if you can get a time off of your job to go work a harvest, or even just a few days of sorting fruit and stomping bins and doing punch downs and stuff like that. If you're interested in wine, I don't think there's a better way to wrap your head further around what wine is and why. I think everybody has that moment when they realize they like are into it and kind of have that feeling. And I think if you really want to understand and be really great at selling wine or serving wine or whatever it is, or just having wine to drink in your house that your friends are gonna like, I think like there's no better way than to go and deepen your understanding. Go work a harvest and go taste wine during harvest and try to find a place that does tours that you can see the process happening. You can smell the fermentations going. You can see the whole thing. I think it's fascinating, and getting the full package of dirt, grapes, vineyard to process, it's a factory essentially. It's mechanical. It's separating vines from stem. It's moving stuff around with pumps. These things are cool. They're fun to watch. They're once you turn on a pump and move some wine around and do a pump over, it's cool. It feels really good to like do it, and if you like wine, you like the taste, taste wine as juice, taste it as half fermented, taste it as 3/4 fermented, taste it just finished, taste it just barreled. All these things are really, I think, great to build a knowledge base if it's something you're into, and half of the workforce in Napa, especially, if you start asking around in the back of house, especially, are former wore a suit to work, was a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, just, burnt out on corporate life, whatever it is. And always loved wine, came and worked to Harvest. The story's told, so.
There are opportunities for people that they could take advantage of.
No question. Yeah. I mean, if you're interested in getting your hands dirty and getting some, some grape juice under your fingernails, reach out to a winery you like, or especially the smaller ones. Like if you're talking to a person, not their like HR department or whatever, like, hey, I'm going to be around in September. Can I come by and check things out? You never know. Reach out to us. We can hook you up.
This fall, what are you drinking? It's harvest time, and then as we get into the autumn months, what are you drinking? What do you recommend?
Yeah, that's a great question. Fall wine is like my favorite time of year for wine because you can bridge, especially in California, Northern California, you can bridge that gap between like summer and fall. It may even still be warm, but for whatever reason, that vibe changes the tiniest bit to, maybe you're really looking more for red wine or something a little bit more body. But we talked last time about Counoise, obviously we're pretty obsessed with it. But Counoise is kind of perfect gamay. You start thinking about Thanksgiving, and it's like, where do I want to be for, poultry and roasty vegetables and herbs and all that, and then you start getting into some more earthy, kind of crunchy red fruit, that kind of stuff, which, I think Rhone wines are great for that, especially the lighter Côte de Rhone or, Cinsault, Carignan kind of stuff is fantastic. I mean, obviously Burgundy, sure.
Right.
But, we can't quite afford to drink the kind of Burgundies we want to be drinking yet.
Right. Burgundy is not the average person's table wine. They tend to be a little bit for a special occasion.
Yeah. But, same as everywhere else, there's a range. And if you have the time and you have resources to find some affordable versions of it, they're out there. So that's kind of where we lean into this time of year. And then obviously, we're not thinking about winter yet. It's not time for that. So.
Right. Yeah. John, your uncle, and I toured the Rhone in the fall several years ago. And, it's just now it's just permanently imprinted in my brain that, if I can roast chicken with a Châteauneuf de Pape or something, I mean, it's just like, it's just heaven on earth.
Yeah, that's the jam. That's what's up for sure. Fall. Yeah, I agree. Fall is Rhone time. And, but like the Cru Beaujolais, the Rhones, the, Provençal red wine is really cool, which is kind of a bit of a deep cut for a lot of people, but there's awesome stuff in the south of France.
Any other thoughts about the eating and drinking and enjoying the autumn?
I mean, that's the other thing that's fun about harvest is every year there's always, everybody's super busy and it's like, get home, go to bed, get your rest when you can.
Mm-hmm.
But there comes like, week 4 or 5, 6, in that range of harvest when things are really, really cranking, that everybody eventually is like, all right, we're going to have a dinner party and we're just going to, forego sleep for the night. We're going to have everybody over and, we're going to have a party, whatever. And those are always the most memorable, nights, when everybody's just kind of exhausted and ready to have a good time. And, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel and, give up on a little bit of rest. So, that's always fun. And like you said, a roast, putting the chicken in the oven and enjoying that this time of year is nothing better.
That's great. Well, that was exciting. Ben is so eloquent when it comes to talking about wine and the migrant issues and everything else, as well as the fun and everything else that comes up. It was a great interview. I really enjoyed it. This is Jay Fettigan. I'll see you next time on Foodytime.